Let's start with the most prestigious tournament in tennis, Wimbledon. Roger Federer holds the men's record with 8 titles, but here's what makes that absolutely insane. He won 5 straight from 2003 to 2007, then came back in 2009, 2012, and 2017. That's a decade-long dominance on grass courts that we'll probably never see again. But Wimbledon wasn't always the global spectacle it is today. Founded in 1877 at the All England Lawn Tennis and Croquet Club in London, the first championship had just 22 men competing. Spencer Gore won that inaugural tournament, and here's the crazy part. He thought tennis was just a passing fad that would never catch on. Real smooth prediction there, Spencer. The women's tournament didn't start until 1884, when Maud Watson became the first ladies' champion. Back then, women played in full-length dresses and corsets. Imagine trying to serve and volley in Victorian formal wear. These ladies were absolute warriors. Here's where Wimbledon gets unique. It's the only Grand Slam still played on grass. Every other major switched to hard courts or clay, but Wimbledon said, "Now we're keeping the original surface." This creates the fastest playing conditions in tennis, where serves can reach 150+ miles per hour, and rallies are often decided in 3 to 4 shots. It's tennis at warp speed. The grass courts completely change how players approach the game. Take Rafael Nadal, the guy who owns clay courts like real estate. On grass, he's won just twice, in 2008 and 2010. That 2008 final against Federer lasted 4 hours and 48 minutes and is often called the greatest match ever played. Nadal won 6-4, 6-4, 6-7, 6-7, 9-7 in a match that had everything: rain delays, championship points saved, and a 5th set that went to 9-7 because there were no tie breaks in final sets back then. Speaking of long matches, the 2019 final between Novak Djokovic and Federer lasted 4 hours and 57 minutes. Djokovic won 7-6, 1-6, 7-6, 4-6, 13-12 in the first Wimbledon final to feature a final set tiebreak. Federer had 2 championship points on his own serve and couldn't convert either. That's the kind of heartbreak that keeps you awake at night. But let's talk about the woman who absolutely dominated grass courts, Martina Navratilova. 9 Wimbledon titles from 1978 to 1990. She was like a grass court assassin, serving and volleying her way through the field year after year. Her rivalry with Chris Evert defined women's tennis in the 80s, but on grass, Navratilova was in a different league. Wimbledon's traditions are what make it special. The all-white dress code isn't just for show. It's been enforced since the 19th century. In 2023, they finally updated the rule to allow women to wear dark-colored undershorts instead of strictly white, addressing concerns about comfort during menstruation. That's a rare departure from tradition for a tournament that still serves strawberries and cream and has a royal patron. The center court, with its retractable roof installed in 2009, seats 15,000 people and has a 2300 BST curfew. No play after 11 p.m., which has led to some matches being suspended at crucial moments. The queue system for same-day tickets is legendary. People camp out overnight just for a chance to see tennis history. Here's something wild about Wimbledon's prize money. They've been paying equal prize money to men and women since 2007. But it took a campaign led by Venus Williams to make it happen. She argued that women's matches were just as entertaining and drew similar crowds. She was absolutely right. The tournament has weathered everything except world wars. It was canceled from 1915 to 1918 and 1940, 1945, but even COVID-19 couldn't stop it completely. They just delayed it to 2021. And that 2020 cancellation was the first peacetime cancellation in Wimbledon's history. Some players just couldn't figure out grass. Jimmy Connors, one of the greatest players ever, never won Wimbledon. Pete Sampras won 7 times but struggled early in his career on the surface. Then there's Carlos Alcaraz, who won back-to-back titles in 2023 and 2024, beating Djokovic both times. Then in 2025, Sinner broke Alcaraz's winning streak in a thrilling final, adding his name to the long list of champions. The longest men's final in Wimbledon history was that 2009 match between Federer and Andy Roddick, 4 hours and 17 minutes. Federer won 5-7, 7-6, 7-6, 3-6, 16-14. That 5th set had 30 games, and Roddick served 27 aces but still lost. Sometimes tennis is just brutal. For the women, the longest final was Venus Williams beating Lindsay Davenport in 2005, 2 hours and 45 minutes, 4-6, 7-6, 9-7. Venus saved a match point in the second set tiebreak and then outlasted Davenport in a third set that went to 9-7. Pure determination. Wimbledon crowns its champions with the Gentlemen's Singles Trophy, Cyril Ride, a silver gilt cup, and the Venus Rosewater dish for women. Winners get to keep replicas, but the originals stay at the All England Club. That's 147 years of tennis history sitting in those trophy cases. Now let's talk about the complete opposite of Wimbledon, Roland Garros, the French Open. If Wimbledon is tennis at light speed, Roland Garros is tennis in slow motion, and that's exactly what makes it brutal. This tournament is held on red clay courts in Paris from late May to early June, and the clay changes everything, made from crushed brick limestone, and gravel. It creates the slowest surface in tennis. Balls bounce higher, rallies last longer, and matches turn into wars of attrition. It's not about who hits harder, it's about who can outlast the other guy. One man has absolutely dominated this tournament, Rafael Nadal. 14 titles. Let me say that again. 14 French Open titles from 2005 to 2022. His record at Roland Garros is 112 wins and 3 losses. That's a 97.4% win rate on clay. He's not just the king of clay, he's the emperor, the dictator, the absolute ruler of red dirt. Those 3 losses, Robin Soderling in 2009, probably the biggest upset in tennis history, Novak Djokovic in 2018 in the quarterfinals, and Alexander Zverev in 2022, but Nadal was injured and couldn't finish the match. That's it. 3 losses in 17 years. Absolutely ridiculous. The French Open started in 1891 as the French Championships, but it was only for French club members. Talk about exclusive. It didn't become a Grand Slam until 1925 when they opened it to international players. The tournament got its current name from Roland Garros, a French aviator who was the first person to fly across the Mediterranean. He died in World War I, and they named the stadium after him in 1928. Here's what's crazy about clay courts. They completely neutralize power players. Pete Sampras, who won 14 Grand Slams, never won the French Open, not once. Jimmy Connors, same story. These guys could dominate on every other surface, but clay exposed their weaknesses. You can't just blast winners past people when the ball bounces chest high and gives your opponent time to run everything down. The women's record belongs to Chris Evert with 7 titles from 1974 to 1986. Evert was built for clay, patient, consistent, with incredible topspin. She understood that on clay, the last person to make an error usually wins. Her rivalry with Martina Navratilova was fascinating because Navratilova dominated everywhere except clay. Evert owned the red dirt. Let's talk about some epic matches. The longest men's final was Mats Wilander beating Guillermo Vilas in 1982. 4 hours and 42 minutes. Wilander lost the first set 1-6, then came back to win 7-6, 6-0, 6-4. That's the beauty of clay. You're never out of a match because the surface rewards patience and endurance over power. But here's the most insane fact about the French Open. In 2010, John Isner and Nicolas Mahut played the longest match in tennis history, 11 hours and 5 minutes over 3 days. The final score was 6-4, 3-6, 6-7, 7-6, 70-68, 70-68 in the 5th set. They played 180 games in a single match. The scoreboard actually broke because it wasn't programmed to handle scores that high. That match was so ridiculous that the French Open changed their rules. In 2022, they introduced a 10-point super tiebreak at 6-6 in the final set to prevent these marathon matches. Sometimes you have to save players from themselves. The clay surface creates unique challenges. Players slide into shots, which looks cool but destroys your shoes and can cause injuries. The red dust gets everywhere, in your hair, your clothes, your equipment, and the weather in Paris can be unpredictable. Rain delays are common, and unlike other tournaments, they don't have roofs on all the courts. Iga Świątek has emerged as the new queen of clay with 4 titles from 2020 to 2024. She won her first at age 19 in 2020 when the tournament was delayed to September due to COVID-19. That was weird. The French Open in fall weather with reduced crowds. But Świątek adapted perfectly, playing fearless tennis and announcing herself as Nadal's successor on clay. The trophies at Roland Garros are works of art. The men win the Coupe des Mousquetaires, named after France's 4 musketeers, the French players who dominated tennis in the 1920s and 30s. The women get the Suzanne Lenglen Cup, named after the French tennis legend who won 6 Wimbledon titles in the 1920s. Both trophies are crafted by Malario, the same jewelers who make pieces for European royalty. Here's something that shows how different clay is. Roger Federer, arguably the greatest player ever, only won the French Open once, in 2009, one time. He reached 5 finals and lost 4 of them to Nadal. That 2008 final was particularly brutal. Nadal won 6-1, 6-3, 6-0. Federer got bageled in a Grand Slam final. On clay, Nadal made even Federer look ordinary. The French Open is also where careers can be made or broken. Björn Borg won 6 titles from 1974 to 1981, then achieved the French Wimbledon double 3 consecutive times. That's winning on clay in June, then switching to grass, and winning Wimbledon a month later. Different surfaces, different games, same champion. If you're loving this video, subscribe now and help us hit 5,000 tennis fans by month's end. Speaking of switching surfaces, let's head to the other side of the world for the Australian Open, the Happy Slam. If Roland Garros is a grueling test of endurance, the Australian Open is tennis in a furnace. We're talking about playing in Melbourne's summer heat, where temperatures regularly hit 40 degrees, 104 degrees, and the courts become so hot they can literally melt your shoes. The Australian Open kicks off the tennis season every January, and it's the youngest Grand Slam, starting in 1905 as the Australasian Championships. But here's the thing. For decades, nobody wanted to go. It was too far from Europe and North America, too close to Christmas and New Year's, and frankly, not prestigious enough to justify the trip. Stars like John McEnroe and Chris Evert regularly skipped it. Everything changed in 1988 when they moved to Melbourne Park and switched from grass to hard courts. Suddenly, the tournament became accessible, modern, and appealing to top players. The hard courts created a neutral battleground, faster than clay, slower than grass, where any playing style could succeed. One man has absolutely owned this tournament, Novak Djokovic, with 10 titles from 2008 to 2023. His record in Australian Open finals, 10-0. Perfect. He's never lost a final in Melbourne, which is just insane when you consider the quality of players he's faced. That 2012 final against Rafael Nadal lasted 5 hours and 53 minutes, the longest Grand Slam final ever. Djokovic won 5-7, 6-4, 6-2, 6-7, 7-5 in a match that was pure torture to watch. Both players were cramping, exhausted, and barely standing by the end. The women's all-time record belongs to Margaret Court with 11 titles, but 7 of those were in the amateur era when competition was limited. In the Open era, Serena Williams leads with 7 titles from 2003 to 2017. That 2017 win was particularly special. She was pregnant with her daughter Olympia and didn't drop a set the entire tournament. Imagine dominating a Grand Slam while growing a human being. The Australian Open has some unique quirks. They have a heat policy that can suspend play when conditions become dangerous, but the threshold is ridiculously high. Basically, players have to be collapsing before they'll stop matches. The tournament also introduced night sessions in 1988, creating an electric atmosphere under the lights at Rod Laver Arena. Here's a crazy fact. The Australian Open once held 2 tournaments in 1 year. In 1977, they played in both January and December because they were shifting the schedule. Then in 1986, they held no tournament at all as they moved back to January 1987. So technically, there are 2 1977 Australian Open champions. Vitas Gerulaitis and Roscoe Tanner for the men, Yvonne Goolagong-Cawley and Kerry Melville-Reid for the women. The longest women's final was Serena Williams beating Justine Henin in 2010, 2 hours and 25 minutes. Henin was making a comeback after retirement, and she pushed Serena to the limit before losing 6-4, 3-6, 6-2. That match showed why Serena was so dominant. Even when she wasn't playing her best tennis, she found ways to win. The Australian Open's nickname, the Happy Slam, comes from its relaxed, festival-like atmosphere. There's live music, the fan walk where you can get close to players, and a general party vibe that's different from the stuffiness of Wimbledon or the intensity of the US Open. It's tennis, but fun. From the laid-back vibes of Melbourne, we head to the complete chaos of New York City for the US Open. If the Australian Open is the Happy Slam, the US Open is the Loud Slam, the Crazy Slam, the Holy Shit Did That Just Happen Slam. Held from late August to early September at Flushing Meadows in Queens, the US Open is tennis with a New York attitude. The crowds are rowdy, the atmosphere is electric, and the night matches can go until 2 a.m. This is where tennis meets Broadway, pure entertainment. The US Open is actually the oldest Grand Slam, starting in 1881 as the US National Championships. But it's had more identity changes than a witness protection program. It started on grass at Newport Casino in Rhode Island, moved to Forest Hills in 1915, then finally settled at Flushing Meadows in 1978, where it adopted hard courts. 3 men share the Open-era record with 5 titles each. Roger Federer, 2004-2008, Pete Sampras, 1990-2002, and Jimmy Connors, 1974-1983. Federer's run was particularly dominant, 5 straight titles, winning 35 consecutive matches. But here's what's crazy. Since Federer's last win in 2008, we've had 15 different men's champions in 16 years. The US Open has become completely unpredictable. The Women's Open-era record belongs to Chris Evert and Serena Williams with 6 titles each, but the all-time record is held by Mola Mallory with 8 titles from 1915 to 1926. Serena's 1999 win was special. She was just 17 years old, becoming the first African-American woman to win a Grand Slam since Althea Gibson in 1958. The US Open was the first Grand Slam to introduce tiebreaks in 1970, revolutionizing tennis by ensuring matches wouldn't drag on forever. They started with a sudden death 9-point system, then evolved to the modern 12-point tiebreak that's now used everywhere. In 2022, they added a 10-point super tiebreak for final sets, keeping matches from becoming endurance contests. The longest men's final was Andy Murray beating Novak Djokovic in 2012, 4 hours and 54 minutes. Murray won 7-6, 7-5, 2-6, 3-6, 6-2. Arthur Ashe Stadium, the main court, seats 23,171 people, the largest tennis venue in the world. The atmosphere during night matches is unlike anything else in tennis. The crowd gets involved, players feed off the energy, and matches can turn into absolute theater. Here's what makes the US Open unique. It's the only Grand Slam that's never been canceled. Not during World War I, World War II, or even COVID-19. In 2020, they played without fans, creating an eerie atmosphere, but they played. The tournament's continuity is remarkable. The US Open also pioneered equal prize money, implementing it in 1973, decades before other tournaments. Billie Jean King fought for this equality, and the US Open led the way. In 2019, the total prize pool was $57 million, showing just how much the sport has grown. Carlos Alcaraz's 2022 victory marked a changing of the guard. At 19, he became the youngest men's champion since Sampras in 1990, and his win moved him to world number 1. The kid from Spain brought a new style of tennis, aggressive, athletic, and fearless. The US Open awards the men's and women's singles trophies, with equal prize money that now exceeds $3 million for each champion. It's a tournament that rewards excellence while embracing the chaos and energy of New York City. From Wimbledon's grass court traditions to Roland Garros' clay court battles, from Australia's summer heat to New York's electric nights, these 4 tournaments represent the ultimate test in tennis. Each Grand Slam demands different skills, different strategies, and different mental approaches. That's why winning all 4, the career Grand Slam, is so rare and so special. Only 8 men and 10 women have ever done it, proving that true greatness in tennis means mastering every surface, every condition, and every challenge the sport can throw at you. Thank you for watching all the way up to here. If you love this video, subscribe now and help us hit 5,000 tennis fans by month's end.